Hello out there in the Cotton Belt. We are potting today from the snow-gripped, gentle rollers of East Memphis, where the kids have been out of school for the entire week, and the parents, present company included, are ready to pull our hair out. So we hope wherever you are, that you are warm and safe. We know that some parts of the belt got really walloped by ice and ice storms, particularly south of here in Mississippi, kind of North Mississippi swath. And then I know in some of those upper southeast states as well, there's been a lot of ice storm damage. So we certainly have all of y'all in our prayers and thoughts this week. We will be monitoring and hoping for the best. Now, you may have missed it, but just last week, some major news broke out of Washington, D.C. that could help us with the all-important issue of increasing cotton demand. Back on January 22nd, U.S. Rep. Greg Murphy of North Carolina officially introduced the Buying American Cotton Act, which, in short, would create a tax credit to incentivize buying products made with American-grown cotton. Now, this is a big deal. I'll tell you, as far back as the Memphis Gin Show in the winter of 2024 with Joe Nicosia, and then at other points over the past couple of years, this idea has risen in popularity that, hey, the U.S. consumer is the most voracious consumer of goods on the planet. If we could come up with a way to let American consumers solve this issue of demand for American cotton, seems simple enough, but that could work wonders. As we've said, demand is the root cause of all of our pricing problems. We talk a lot about the symptoms, but demand is the root cause. So we've had a frequent Cotton Companion guest and a friend of the podcast, economist Darren Hudson, who has been talking about this idea that even marginal 1% gain in market share for cotton over man-made fibers, just 1% moving that needle would have significant market ramifications. So for context, I wanted to give you a direct quote that Darren told me. He said, and I quote, "We are currently at 23% market share globally. That has declined steadily since the 1970s. Of course, that is reflected in nearly flat consumption for the last decade. The number I have been using is that if we return to just 25% market share, that would result in an increase in consumption of between 11 and 14 million bales annually, or about the size of the entire U.S. crop." It means this past year. We have been, this is Darren speaking, we have been at 0% growth in total consumption of cotton for about 10 years. Our modeling suggests that if we even had just 1% growth per year in total consumption, that would mean about 10 cents in price growth over 10 years on average. So the end quote there. So, again, hard to overstate the importance of increasing demand for the health of our industry. Now, along comes this bill that aims to increase demand for our American cotton specifically. Even if only marginally so, it could reap big rewards. So we are going to get deep into the Buying American Cotton Act today with a man who has been hustling in Washington, D.C. to bring that thing to the forefront. That is Mr. Robbie Minnich, the National Cotton Council's Vice President of Washington Operations. But first, we are proud to be bringing you a brief discussion with Cotton Companion sponsors Corteva and their Phytogen brand Cottonseed. Mr. Spencer Thompson, a Phytogen field agronomist, recently sat down with our custom content lead, Hillary Wynn, to talk about, among other things, how Phytogen varieties stacked up in field trials around the belt. Let's hear from those two right now.
Hi, I'm Hillary Wynn, Custom Content Manager at Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. Joining me today is Spencer Thompson, Phytogen field agronomist. He's going to discuss how cotton growers can consistently achieve top yields, safeguard soil health, and cut input costs in order to set the stage for a more profitable 2026. Spencer, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Spencer, we've turned the calendar to another year, and cotton growers are planning for another season. As they consider variety selection, what factors should be considered for 2026?
Yield is the end game for us. It's what we base the success of our harvest on, and the first thing that growers want to know is if a variety has a consistent yield potential. Phytogen Cottonseed has a proven track record of dependable high yield potential, and our varieties are consistently in the top of OBTs across the cotton belt, and that shows the reliability of those high-performing genetics and traits that help maximize yield season after season. Phytogen has set the standard in the field when it comes to reliable high yield potential, and that is what has gained the confidence of farmers. We saw excellent yields across the cotton belt last year, and this past season was another proof point of our high yield potential in the third-party trials, and we got to see that from one of our newest varieties, Figen 357 W3FE. At Auburn University's Prattville location, Figen 357 won the dryland OBT with well over 1,600 pounds and beating the top-yielding Delta Pine variety by more than 200. And not only that, 9 out of the top 10 from that OBT were all Figen varieties. Then we move over to Mississippi, look at their 2025 on-farm trials over there, and Figen 357 wins the Delta region, yielding an 1,823-pound average across 4 locations and beating the highest-yielding Delta Pine variety by more than 100 pounds.
Consistency is such a big deal for growers. When you mention those trial results, it really underscores that reliability factor. As cotton producers are looking at varieties for next season, is there anything they should consider that might not be top of mind?
Yeah, and for me, that's nematodes. Nematodes, in my opinion, are one of the most underrated pests that cotton farmers have to contend with, and often their presence and even the yield losses associated with those, they'll go unnoticed or misdiagnosed, especially early on. And when we look at the economic impact of pests across the Southeast and we consider our yield loss in addition to the treatment costs, nematodes are costing cotton farmers more money than both thrips and plant bows combined. How does Figen come into this? Where can it help? Figen was the first cottonseed company to offer varieties with resistance to both reniform and root knot nematodes, and most Figen brand varieties today come with a stacked resistance. This has changed the game for cotton growers because high yield potential, it really doesn't mean all that much if we can't protect it. By switching to Figen varieties with our nematode resistant native traits, we're giving that high yield potential the protection it deserves from start to finish all season long. Farmers are not having to choose between yield or nematode resistance. They're getting both with the Figen varieties. And as a result of this built-in, always-on protection, we're not just maximizing our yields, but improving soil health long-term by reducing those nematode numbers, and university studies are backing this up. In 2024, Mississippi State University conducted a nematode trial and found that Figen varieties with nematode resistance are increasing yields from 175 pounds per acre all the way up to 502 pounds per acre when compared to varieties without nematode traits. In that same trial, Figen brand varieties with reniform and root knot resistance had a 73% reduction in reniform populations compared to those with only root knot. So you're not just protecting your yields in year one, but you're also protecting your soils in the future to maintain high yields, whether you're planting cotton or another crop. And we're also seeing that we can reduce or even eliminate some nematode treatments with Figen varieties, further improving their bottom line.
That's exciting news for cotton growers. Have your customers seen the benefits of nematode resistance on their farms?
Absolutely. Figen growers are seeing game-changing benefits on their farms all across the Southeast. For example, we've got a grower down in South Alabama who has had some incredibly high nematode populations on his farm. He made that switch to Figen varieties due to our nematode resistance. Not only did he increase his cotton yields by several hundred pounds, but he was also able to decrease his crop protection costs by $200,000 a year by eliminating that use of nematicide, improving his bottom line on multiple fronts. We've got another grower over in Georgia. He began planting Figen 3 years ago because his cotton yields were just continuing to drop year after year with competitive varieties due to that nematode pressure. Once he made that switch to Figen, he set the yield record on his farm in 2023 and then broke that record again in 2024. In 2025, he repeated that for a third time and even had some fields averaging over 1,800 pounds. And that grower was able to accomplish that with 3 different varieties: Figen 411 W3FE, Figen 415 W3FE, and Figen 475 W3FE. And that just shows the consistent performance across our portfolio and how that high yield potential from Figen cottonseed is helping growers improve their bottom line and making a very sizable difference in their farm income.
It definitely sounds like nematode resistance from Figen can help growers improve yield potential this season. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, in addition to nematode resistance, Figen varieties come with a very complete package of built-in traits, and not only to manage pest infestations, but also some early season challenges and those resistant weeds to continue protecting that yield potential. Every Figen W3FE variety is resistant to bacterial blight, and that's going to give us a strong, healthy plant to kind of set us up for maximum yield. Figen also offers industry-leading early season vigor to promote uniform emergence and help plants establish quickly and vigorously, even in tougher conditions. And this results in a more consistent stand and reduces the likelihood of replants, setting a stage for a more productive season. Also, with Figen cottonseed, you are getting the best weed control system on the market. The Enlist cotton trait helps growers maximize yield by leveraging 3 different modes of action, those being 2,4-D-choline, glyphosate, and glufosinate, to gain control over those resistant weeds. Plus, you get that safety and flexibility that the Enlist weed control system offers, simplifying crop management across complementary crops such as soybeans and peanuts. And then finally, one of the biggest benefits that comes with a bag of Phygen cottonseed is the service and expertise that you're going to get from that local seed team. And we pride ourselves on being available and very accessible to that grower throughout the season.
Where can our audience go for more information?
Yeah, y'all can go to phytogen.com/varieties or reach out to one of your local seed team.
Spencer, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Okay, a big thank you to Spencer Thompson of Corteva and to our custom lead Hillary Wynn for bringing us that interview. Now, as we have mentioned earlier in this episode, there has been some movement on Capitol Hill this week regarding the Buying American Cotton Act. Now, if you're like me, you probably don't expect much to get accomplished in Congress these days with the divided nature of those both of those houses. But I'm told that this bill stands a good chance because it was introduced with bipartisan support. That's sponsors from both sides of the aisle. Now, that is no small achievement. That's the type of thing that can only be accomplished with some serious political skill and effort. And folks, our guest today is one of the main engines behind that tremendous effort. We have Mr. Robbie Minnich, National Cotton Council Vice President of Washington Operations. Robbie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Beck. Happy to be here. Always good to join.
Yeah, we know you stay busy up there, so we appreciate you making time for us. Now, I am you could call me a legislative newbie, so I want you to bear with me. I may have some basic questions for you. We want to get started from the very beginning on the Buying American Cotton Act. Where did this thing come from? Who came up with this bill?
Well, it's really a brainchild of the industry and the NCC. I mean, we started, I guess, probably a year and a half ago now with a strategic planning task force, trying to think through what are challenges that the industry faces and how do we address those. And one of the big ones was how do we build demand? Obviously, we want to support the industry any way we can and through government programs, and we do that. But at the same time, we also know that long-term sustainability really comes back to creating that demand for cotton in the United States and around the world. And it sort of came out of that conversation and morphed into the bills that have been introduced in Congress.
Very good. Yeah, I have been preaching that here recently. The demand is the main thing. Demand is the root cause of a lot of our ailments in the industry. So it's great to know that the council certainly has its eye on that ball. So with a bill like this, Robbie, tell me, what is your role specifically with trying to kind of grease the wheels and get this rolling through various subcommittees and such in order to finally make it to the floor?
Sure. I mean, we've been trying to think through what are the different strategies that we can do to get this passed. We started out with a bill being introduced in the Senate back May of last year. Just recently got a bill introduced in the House. I'm sure we'll talk more about those in particular. But our job has been to help identify who those champions are, who those leaders should be, and then also meet with a whole host of congressional offices, their members and the staff, to raise awareness of the bill, seek them to co-sponsor the bill. Because the number of co-sponsors on something like this, as you mentioned, I mean, Congress is very divided. It's hard to get anything through Congress. So the more that you can show that there's a broad support for something, both from a geographic standpoint, but also a political standpoint, that helps get it done. And that's kind of the beauty of the Buying American Cotton Act to me, is that there's really something for everyone there, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're from a cotton state or whether you're from an urban area, whether it's, reducing, hopefully in the long term, the amount of synthetic fibers that American consumers buy. And then it's the environmental impacts of that with less microplastics and microfibers floating around in the air and in the water. That's something that can appeal to an urban Democrat. If you're from a cotton state or in a rural area, when you create this demand, that's going to pull and that's going to help the bottom line of a producer. So, it's kind of neat working on something where there's literally something for everyone there if they're willing to take a look at it. And our job is to get it in front of them and help explain why this is important and why that it's something that they can get behind.
I hear you, Robbie, and I 100% believe you. It's an easier thing to sell if there's something in it for everyone, but it still takes a lot of doing. So, don't minimize the hard work that you all had to put in to get into those offices. I mean, it's no small task, no small effort. So, can you tell me again from a newbie perspective here? Can you put into context what happened last week? It was January 22nd. The headlines I read that said this bill was introduced, I guess, to the House in this instance. Yeah, forgive the basic question, but what does that even mean? And who authored this bill and have been its main champions there on Capitol Hill in Congress?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, back last May, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith from Mississippi introduced the bill as the lead sponsor in the Senate. It's got a number of co-sponsors that's bipartisan, Republican and Democrats that are support the bill in the Senate. And then the House bill was just introduced, and so Greg Murphy, congressman from Eastern North Carolina, and Terry Sewell, congresswoman from Alabama, got the bill introduced. They're the main lead sponsors there in the House, and we ended up with I think 22 co-sponsors on that House bill, equally divided between Republicans and Democrats, and we purposefully did it that way to show the strong bipartisan nature of the bill. And then whenever you kind of go through and you dig in and you look and say, all right, who are these 22 and where are they from? That's where it gets really interesting to me because, we were able to get members who aren't from cotton areas at all. We were able to get urban members. So one member is a Democrat from California who represents Santa Barbara. Another is a Democrat that represents downtown Cleveland. Adriano Espaillat, congressman from New York, represents the Upper West Side. So to have a member of Congress who literally represents the Upper West Side of Manhattan coming in and saying, "Hey, I see the benefits of this bill," is really kind of fun for me. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it took a lot of work to get there. Me and my team, as well as other industry representatives, important to include them. Have had, probably 150, 200 meetings just on the House side of Congress in the last part of last year going into this year. So that's a lot of meetings with a lot of offices talking about this bill. The other neat thing in kind of that advocacy of it and going around and getting to the point that we're at is it hasn't just been the cotton industry. We've had brands and retailers go with us. I've been, with cotton for over 20 years. I've never been going into congressional offices representing the council, and then also having brands and retailers beside me, and all of us saying, yes, we all agree that this is an important bill and this is a good thing. And so, representatives from Gap as well as Victoria's Secret have been going around the Hill with us, spreading that message.
Yeah, that's great. I want to be sure I understood you correctly. You said there's 22 co-sponsors. You got 11 Democrats and 11 Republicans there. Is that accurate?
And then you got your two kind of leads on the bill. So really, you got 24 members on the House side signed on to the bill, and others are coming on every day.
Yeah. Well, I was just kind of focused on the symbolically strong message that in itself sends. That's evenly divided. The bipartisan effort there. It's great. Really, another stroke of political skill there on y'all's doing. So, can you tell me then, Robbie, if it's passed, tell us what effect. Are people calling it BACA? By the way, are people shorthanding this?
At least we are. I
Okay.
don't know if it's in the common vernacular yet.
Okay,
We're-
I'm going to
we'll get there.
introduce. I'm going to try to make BACA happen. If passed, can you tell us what effect BACA aims to have for our country's producers? I guess what I'm asking in layman's terms, what does this bill stipulate? Should it become law?
Well, I mean, what it really focuses on is, how do we build that demand? And the thing that we kind of realized, thinking about that strategic planning task force was, when a company like Gap, and as I said, they're supportive, they're going out around the hill with us. When they put in an order for 1 million pair of cotton khaki pants, at the end of the day, that supplier on the other end is going to use whatever cotton they can use to meet the quality characteristics that the brand or the retailer is telling them they have to do to produce that product. And so what this tries to do is give an incentive to those brands and retailers to take that a step forward and not just go to their supplier and say, I want 1 million pair of cotton khaki pants in these colors, cut sizes. To take it a step forward and say, and it's got to be made of U.S. cotton. And I got to be able to prove that it's U.S. cotton, because whenever I bring it back to the United States to sell to the U.S. consumer, I'd be eligible for a tax credit. And so that's really where it gets to in its essence. Now there are some tiers to it. The more value add that's done in the U.S., the higher the credit. So if you're using U.S. yarn, and it's a higher credit. If you're using U.S. yarn that was made in the U.S. fabric, it's a higher credit. If you're doing that with a trade ally of the U.S., so think of USMCA or CAFTA, DR, some of those trade agreements that the U.S. has. If you're doing it in those countries or you're doing it here at home, even better, you get a higher credit. And so really trying to incentivize more U.S. manufacturing, doing it in the U.S. if you can. If you can't do it in the U.S., at least do it in this hemisphere. Do it with a trade ally of the United States. Ultimately, we think that that's going to incentivize those brands and retailers to take that extra step to say, yeah, you've got to use U.S. cotton in making my product. Whenever you look at what the U.S. consumers buy today, and you said, all right, how much cotton does it take to make all the towels and jeans and sheets and everything that U.S. consumers buy? It's about 20 million bale equivalents, which, you think about it, we only grow 12 to 15 billion bales. So the U.S. consumer is buying more in cotton goods than we produce in cotton. But then when you kind of look under the hood and say, all right, of those 20 million bale equivalents that U.S. consumers are buying in goods, how much of that is U.S. cotton? And you look at trade flows and you realize, oh, it's only about 4 million bales out of the 20. And so what we want to do is turn that 4 into 8, that 8 into 12, that 12 into 16, to really give a market for the industry.
Yeah, gosh, that would be just tremendous, gigantic if we were using that much of U.S. cotton output via this type program. It seems like traceability has got to be crucial, a crucial component of a bill of this nature. So how does that work? How's that going to work with this bill? What software or supply chain tracking mechanism are we going to be relying on?
You really hit on a really important part of this here. And that is the traceability. As I said, that retailer who's going to be trying to qualify for a tax credit is going to have to prove that what they're selling to the U.S. consumer has U.S. cotton in it. And that's going to be important for a lot of reasons. A, you don't want people cheating the system. We want this to increase demand for U.S. cotton. And so, the way the bill's written is kind of open-ended in that it directs the Secretary of the Treasury in consultation with the Secretary of the Agriculture to approve digital platforms to prove that. And so, we don't know exactly what the Secretary of the Treasury will decide when this becomes law and they go through the implementation phase. But I mean, we certainly know that through the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol, you've got Textile Genesis that's out there that's currently doing that. It's capable of providing that. So I think that would certainly be an obvious choice. Some larger brands and retailers may decide they want to create their own. Maybe they already internally have their own. I don't know. I don't think that Treasury would just pick one and say this is the sole digital platform to prove this. But the good thing is we don't have to worry or wait about one being created because there's already one out there. And also I think that that's a good way if that's the case, to drive more cotton through the trust protocol.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, there are platforms out there that can do this sort of thing as opposed to, 15, 20 years ago, that type of software did not exist. So it's doable now. Okay, Robbie, just kind of wind up here. So many of our farmers are going to be interested in this thing, obviously. Can you tell us what they can do, the farmers in our audience or any ag supporter out there? What can they do to help with this effort?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, follow. The NCC has sent out an action alert to its members. I know other organizations are sending out action alerts and follow up on them. A lot of people don't believe that calling your congressman does anything, and that it's just a kind of a waste of time, but it's not. They really care about that. That really does move the needle. I've worked as a staffer on Capitol Hill, and whenever I would write up a recommendation for my boss, and um, he would say, "Who have you heard from back home?" And if I were able to say to him, "Oh yeah, the rice guys and the cotton guys and the soybean guys, they've been wearing me out on this, boss," then he would say, "Okay, yeah, that's something we need to do." But I had to be able to, in good faith, say that to him. So, it's hugely important for our members, anyone involved, anyone who wants to see this bill become law, to call your member of Congress in the House, ask them to co-sponsor it. Look up who's the co-sponsors in the Senate. If your senator is not a co-sponsor, call them, ask them to co-sponsor the Senate bill. Because we've been in conversations with folks from the Speaker's office, with the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, highlighting the bill, making sure they're aware of the bill, what it does, why it's important. And the thing that we just hear over and over is you need to have a lot of co-sponsors behind this, and so if we can get there, I think that increases our odds of actually being able to get this done.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Very good call to action there, Robbie. Hey, man, I appreciate you being with us. It was kind of short notice. I just reached out to you yesterday, and here you are this morning hopping on a call. So always your availability to our audience, American cotton farmers, is genuinely appreciated. And we thank you for your work on this bill. Like I said, it's been a big lift, but you have been proving yourself more than capable in getting this thing moving forward. So a sincere thanks to you for your work on behalf of our industry.
Thank you. Always happy to join. It's fun.
All right, Robbie, thank you. So, all right, that's it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. I want to say thanks again to Mr. Robbie Minnich of the National Cotton Council for spending some time with us today. And thanks, too, to our sponsors, Corteva and their Phytogen seed brand. As always, we want to thank you, dear listener, for joining us and for your continued support. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did like what you heard, please be sure to spread the word and tell your farming friends and neighbors about the Cotton Companion podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
The Cotton Companion podcast is produced by Tyler Hatch and Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters for Meister Media Worldwide in lovely Willoughby, Ohio. I am Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you in a few weeks with the next episode of The Cotton Companion. A couple weeks, I should say. Until then, kick those feet up and rest. You've got a few more weeks of cold winter before we even got to start thinking about doing any field work.
'Cause God made me a farmer. Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God